guys, this is Tina. Welcome back to my channel. So today, you know, another episode of our Fabulous Flowers series that we're doing. And I've been inspired by the Franken pages, you know, that lots of people have done. I know that Gail Agostinelli, she did some gorgeous things with the Franken pages. And I think it originated with Nick the Booksmith, I think. So I thought what we'd do is we're going to do kind of a take on that, but they're going to be Franken flower pages. And then what we're going to do is hopefully kind of make some tags with them. So I have spared you the tedious kind of process of fussy cutting from some vintage books. So I've got here a whole bunch of flowers just from some vintage book pages, all in kind of shades of purples and pinks and just a couple of kind of blues there. So they're kind of all, you know, nicely kind of coordinated. And then I'm just going to use the reverse of the pages that I've cut just to kind of have a little bit of book page, you know, text, just to kind of break up the flowers. You know, it doesn't matter too much if we have card showing, because we're going to use the coffee dyed cardstock. So actually, let's be kind of a little bit organized today and tell you what you're going to need if you're going to do this. So I've just got here an A4 sheet of coffee dyed cardstock. So literally it's just been coffee dyed and obviously ironed. That's that. I've got some Mod Podge, and I was down to kind of not very much Mod Podge. So I'd been doing a bit of decoupage and I've watered it down. So it's slightly watered down Mod Podge. Got obviously a brush to apply it. I have got my card that I use as a spreader. And I've got some scissors. And then obviously I've got my ink pad and my blending tool. So that's kind of the basics that you're going to need for making the actual kind of paper itself. So then in addition, you're going to need whatever flowers and pages that you're choosing to use. So obviously if you've watched any of the Franken pages, people have tended to use, you know, scrapbook papers. They're scraps of scrapbook papers. So we're doing exactly the same concept, except instead of scraps of scrapbook papers, we're using the flowers that have been fussy cut. So in my particular instance, these are all from, you know, vintage floral kind of gardening books. And I've just literally fussy cut around them in kind of coordinating shades. But I mean, you could obviously take flowers from, you know, scrapbook paper or something and cut them out. You know, or obviously you could use flowers from the Fabulous Flowers kit. So if we get time, we might do kind of another collage page using some of those. But in the first instance, I thought we'll just get started with these. Now, I haven't even done a kind of mock-up of this or anything, so we're just literally going to kind of suck it and see. So I'm just going to literally start by tearing just a little bit of text. And it doesn't matter if we have some blank spaces, because the paper has all been coffee dyed. So, you know, I mean, I think it looks quite attractive, kind of just being coffee dyed as it is. And we're just literally going to kind of glue our pieces randomly kind of around the page, like so. So what I might do, now I need to kind of try and decide my method that I want to use. So I'm just going to tear some more of the text, like so. Oops. And we're just going to kind of place it around, you know, roughly where we kind of want it. Like that. I mean, I guess effectively what we're doing is a collage of of flowers here. So, you know, and obviously you don't have to use the same colourway that I'm using. You don't have to use the same coloured flowers. You know, you could use a complete multicoloured, you know, selection of flowers. For me, I just thought, you know, my first attempt, I'm going to try it with coordinating flowers, you know, because hopefully that is going to kind of work easily and, you know, make this quite an easy kind of process. But of course, you know, it's completely up to you, and you may decide to kind of have a whole range of different colours, which, you know, I'm sure would look awesome as well. So I'm just literally tearing out a whole bunch of the text pieces. I mean, I probably should have done this first as well as cutting the flowers, but you know, it's nice to kind of obviously share the process a little bit, isn't it? So there's a few pieces just kind of ready cut now. So what I'm going to do is just start by literally kind of sticking these on. Now, in my particular instance, because my Mod Podge, I don't have an awful lot left, and I want to seal the tag over the top with the Mod Podge. So for me, I'm just going to use my tacky glue. Obviously, if I had more Mod Podge left, I would have just literally used the Mod Podge. It's literally only because, you know, I'm running out that I'm actually kind of going to glue some pieces down instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start by just gluing down, you know, 1 or 2 pieces over here onto the page. And I think, you know, as I say, I haven't actually done this before. I don't know quite, you know, what's going to work best, but I think probably for me, it just seems the natural kind of thing to do is actually layer up some text pieces first. So I think, you know, for me, that kind of seems like a bit of a natural kind of thing to do. But, you know, you may kind of like to actually just literally get straight away stuck in kind of popping your flowers on. You know, completely up to you. This is obviously, you know, choice is yours. So, you know, we might just have it kind of something like this. And, you know, probably this is one of those other instances where kind of don't overthink it, you know, don't get too caught up in kind of thinking about it. Now, that's something that if you watch my channel regularly, I struggle with. I do tend to overthink things, and I do then get a little bit bogged down with, you know, how I want things to look and where I want to kind of layer things. So, you know, this is perhaps quite a good kind of a good test really for me to see whether I can kind of work without doing that. So, I mean, I quite like that kind of being overlapped like that. So what I might do is kind of glue on the leaf section of this flower and then come back to the top after I've glued on the pink flower. So I'm just going to kind of pop that down like that and get my card. Just being very messy here, just wiping it on my hand. Any glue that kind of seeps out, that's just, you know, makes it nice and quick and easy to do. There we go. And then I just kind of pop that like that. So just literally gluing it down. And then kind of take the obviously top part of the flower and glue that down. And again, then I'm just going to kind of spread it with the spreader. Well, not that it's a spreader, obviously, it's my card, but like that. I've got some tissue here for kind of mopping up bits, so I'll kind of mop that up. Might just pop a couple of pieces over there. Oops. Pop some more text over here. And I mean, obviously, the more you do this, the more confident you'll be, I guess, and the more fun you probably have. I mean, I'm probably just being a little bit boring here, really, in the way that I'm doing it at the moment. But I mean, I guess, you know, kind of the point is you'd layer it up. So we're just kind of obviously on our first layer. So oops, actually put that kind of closer like that. I mean, this type of thing, I suppose, is a bit of a test about how in touch you are with your playful side, isn't it? And your kind of childish side. And clearly, just checking I'm in frame and that I am still filming. Clearly, I'm failing miserably, I think, because I'm kind of obviously a little bit ordered and regimented and not really kind of very playful in my method here. So, I mean, obviously, you know, another difference is with the Franken pages that I've obviously watched, they've tended to have been obviously, you know, square or rectangular pieces. These are obviously all shaped pieces, you know, because they're obviously cut into flower pieces. You know, which then you're going to have kind of more irregular gaps and things like that, and spaces to fill. So, you know, in my defense, this is kind of slightly, you know, slightly irregular kind of shapes and things like that. So I think probably that's the kind of helpful thing to do, is actually fill a lot of the space, you know, with the book page, and then kind of maybe fill in where you want the flowers. But I mean, again, you know, this is all just play, you know, we're just playing here, and there's no right or wrong to doing this. So let me just have a look, tear some more text here. But I mean, as I say, because you know, my page has been coffee dyed, I don't mind there actually being kind of the odd space, because obviously it's not unpleasant to look at. It's really quite nice coffee dyed paper. So let me just move the flower pieces out of the way for a moment. You know, which yeah, on its own, you know, the coffee dyed paper looks really, really lovely anyway. Oops. Oh, now this glue is playing up. So this is going to be one of those episodes, I'm afraid. So I apologise now in advance. Sorry about this. Just having glue issues generally. Right. That's better. Don't know why it was clogged up. Sometimes the glue just kind of seems to get clogged up, really, but and now I'm running low on the text pieces, so just grab a few more from my little bit beside me. I've got another one here. You know, and literally, I mean, I'm just being typical crafter here in that I'm just using the the backs of the pages that I've cut the flowers from, because of, you know, being a typical kind of crafting hoarder, didn't want to kind of waste the pages, but they tended to be mainly kind of, you know, foliage and leaves that were left on the pages, so they weren't kind of pieces that I necessarily wanted to use. So it's quite nice to be able to actually use the text in kind of another way, you know, even if it does mean in some cases they're quite small pieces now. There we go. So I might just literally glue what we've got on here and then see where we need to find, you know, fill gaps, because you know, it may be that actually you've got quite a bit now. By the time that we get the flowers on, there might not be as many gaps as we thought. So I'm just going to literally glue them randomly about on here. There we go. And I mean, I've said, you know, a lot of times before, I mean, I never do anything that's going to be fiddly or complicated or difficult or, you know, anything like that. So, you know, this is just something fun to do and easy. I wouldn't be doing anything complicated, you know, or too precise, because that's not kind of an area that I get on very well with. So, you know, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I mean, as I say, I haven't actually done a kind of trial run of this or anything. I don't know how they're going to look. I don't know whether they're actually going to be very nice, you know. I mean, I hope that they're going to be, but they might actually look horrible. In which case, you know, that will be gutting, as it's obviously on video now. But, you know, we're just having a play around. So now I've got obviously some of those book page pieces stuck down. We'll just literally place, oops, that's some more page that I can use, more text. And then we can start placing some of the flowers around, just seeing where we can put them, really. So I kind of think might have kind of something like that there, and then I can just see a little bit more where we might need some flowers. So pop that there, and then I think we'll pop, in fact might just tear that in two and pop a piece there and maybe a piece down there. So there we go. And obviously I'm doing this direct onto the back because I know that particularly Nick the Booksmith, I noticed she didn't actually kind of use a background sheet. Actually, in fact, neither did Gail. They obviously glued the pages together, you know, the pieces, the scraps of paper together. We're backing this onto the cardstock because we're going to actually make this into a tag. Or not this, but, you know, we're going to make hopefully 3 tags, maybe 3. Out of this. So that's why I'm gluing it onto the coffee dyed cardstock, because then obviously it's literally ready to go as tags. You know, because the back will be plain coffee dyed card. So that's why we're obviously kind of doing this. And also, I mean, the franking paper that I watched, you know, Gail and Nick do, they were stitched around. They stitched around, not all of it, but some of the patchwork pieces. Well, my sewing is certainly not good enough for that. So because these are shaped pieces, you know, flowers, I don't think I would be able to stitch around the flowers. So again, you know, that's another kind of variation that we're going to have on kind of the other ones that you may have seen. But again, when you come to do yours, you know, you maybe are a lot better at sewing than me. And so maybe you would be able to actually, just see which way out those go. Maybe you would be able to actually stitch around your flowers. I personally couldn't, you know, but maybe you could. So there we go. So I hope everyone's having a good day. It's quite a sunny day here today. Cold, but sunny. Okay. So just kind of overlap that slightly. So I'll just glue a bit here. Do that. Like that. And I mean, obviously, as I say, we're going to go over all of this with the Mod Podge and kind of seal it down anyway. So, you know, it doesn't matter if bits are kind of a little bit kind of sticking up. Now here, this is a huge piece, obviously. So what I might do is actually cut this down so it's not so large, because, you know, otherwise it might kind of just take over the whole thing. So, and then I'm just going to cut that down a bit more, you know, so it's kind of reasonable shape again. Just cut the edge there. So in fact, I'm going to cut the bottom off that as well. Like that. In fact, now going to just cut that flower off, because we could just pop that flower somewhere, you know, somewhere on its own. So I might just pop this one down there. I might just cut that stem down a bit, because that's pretty long. And again, I mean, it's not until you come to actually stick these on that you kind of notice things. But when I was actually cutting the flowers, obviously I was kind of disappointed if they were anything too small, and thought, oh, you know, they're a bit small, you know, to work with. But actually, now I can kind of see how actually the small ones are kind of better. The big ones are a little bit kind of cumbersome. Just checking I'm filming and that I'm in frame. The big ones are kind of a little bit cumbersome and a bit, you know, a bit too big. So actually the small ones were kind of quite handy. I was a bit shocked just now, because when I just stood up just to check that I was still filming, I think it actually said 23 minutes, which that's flown by. So this may end up dragging on and being a bit of a lengthy video. So I apologise now if that's the case. Obviously this is now taking longer than I expected, so I do apologise. But it's obviously kind of fiddlier, you know, that had I done one before filming, I would have obviously been expecting that and known roughly kind of how long it took to put it together. But as I didn't, this is all kind of new to me, you know, so hopefully you guys won't mind too much. So we've just got kind of a few more spaces to fill. So I might just pop that one here. Over here. Do you see? I mean, I do find this very tricky not to overthink this. It's it is a bit of a struggle. So, I mean, actually, maybe I should do more of these, because maybe they would get me into a bit more playful mode and kind of less thinking mode. Sometimes, you know, you just have days like that as well, don't you, when you're just thinking things through a bit too much. Right. That's that piece. Now, let me just see the types of pieces I've got left. So, I've got another piece that's pretty large. So, oops, maybe I should put that sort of here. Would be good. Like that. So I've been getting into this series called Luther, which I've heard loads of people talk about this before, and for some reason it just didn't really sound very appealing. I don't know why, but I got it into my head that it was a little bit science fiction-y. I don't know why I had I had thought it was that. I don't know. But after somebody at work, you know, again recommended it to me, but somebody who I know quite well, and I thought, well, if he thinks that I'm going to like it, then chances are I will. So I started watching it, and I mean, actually it's got 5, you know, they're up to series 5 now, so that's how behind the times I am, because I've only just obviously started now. But it's very good, I have to say. So I think I started watching it, I think, last weekend, and already I'm up to series 2. Series 2, episode 3, I think. So I'm kind of flying through it. It's very addictive, and yeah, very gripping, very good. Some are obviously better than others, you know, as with most of these kind of series that they kind of put on. Some are, you know, some are much better storylines than others, but you know, overall it's really good. So really enjoying it. So I might just kind of do it like this. Just pop these ones on. In there. Yeah, it's with Idris Elba, and he's very good in it. I looked it up, and I think it said the first series was made in 2010 or something. So again, that's how behind the times that I am with my viewing, because obviously that's ages ago, isn't it? So I don't know how I've only just literally stumbled on that, but, well, I do, because as I say, I just have been resisting, because it just, you know, I thought was very spacey and science fiction-y, but anyway, it's turned out not to be that at all. It's a kind of police detective, you know, thing. It's a bit gory and bloodthirsty at times, but you know, if you like that sort of thing, it's quite good. Right, see which bits now are kind of still loose, because they're kind of getting lost in here and it's hard to see now. Whoa, what's still actually loose on here? Now, I'm not that fussed about going too high on this piece of paper, because, you know, my intention is to make some tags with this, and obviously my tags aren't going to be, you know, as tall as an A4 sheet of paper, so I don't actually need to go that high. Obviously if I were doing this in slow time, I probably would do the whole sheet of paper, but I'm very aware that I'm now beginning to run out of pieces, And obviously I don't want to now have to kind of make you sit watching me just fussy cut some more flowers. So, you know, I think what I'm going to do is kind of make do with as far as I have got. You know, and hopefully kind of you'll get the rough idea. Well, I mean, of course you're going to get the rough idea. You know, because most of you have probably seen all these before anyway, but you know, hopefully kind of it will be good enough to give us some pretty decent tags anyway, if that makes sense. Okay, so just place those in. And this piece here. Just put that in there. I mean, I must say the colours on this look really pretty. Right, just see what's loose still. That piece there was a little stray. So we'll pop that there. There we go. Oops, and another little stray here. Just that pretty blue one. Oh, that's really nice, isn't it? A nice kind of contrast up there. So we'll just pop that up there. Okay. Okay. Right, complete U-turn there. I obviously just couldn't leave it half finished, because even if we kind of don't use the top, you know, for me, I didn't want to kind of have a, you know, half done project really. So I quickly flicked the camera off and obviously have cut out some more flowers. I've got some more text pieces here. So we'll just literally fill in the gaps at the top, so that we can kind of, you know, it's been completed then. So, you know, we probably won't use the top, because as I say, it's to make tags, they're not going to be as big as that, but I just didn't want to have it kind of half finished in a video. To me, that would just feel wrong. So I just thought we would kind of carry on after all. So there we go. So what I'll do is literally just stick on the text pieces first, just kind of literally at random places. So we'll just pop one in here. Then we'll just have one kind of down here. And might use one over there. And again, it's quite interesting because these teeny weeny ones, again, I nearly thought, oh, they're so small, is there any point? But actually, they're the ones that are really useful. So, you know, kind of bit of a tip there, I guess, for, you know, if you decide to do some. These smaller pieces are actually pretty handy. So there we go. Another teeny bit here. Right. So, you know, we may need some more text pieces, we might not. Let's see how we get on now with our extra flowers that obviously I've just cut. So let's just check I've got them all, because they obviously are getting lost now on the page. When I put them down, they kind of just get lost on the table. So I've got this one here, which again is kind of a big one, but it's quite nice, isn't it? Or might I prefer that here? You see, I'm back to overthinking again, I'm going to stick with my first instinct, which was over there on the left, so just literally glue it down. About here. Get my card. Okay. We've got another quite a big piece here, so we could pop that on there. What I might do is just kind of tear that one off and kind of have that more like that, and then we could pop this somewhere else. Maybe kind of here. Move that out of the way. Quite surprising how much it did take to fill the page. I'd clearly kind of way underestimated with my first stab at cutting out all the flowers, but yeah, I guess just something else to be aware of if you're going to do some of these. They do take quite a bit of filling. So there we go. Right, then I've got lots of pink ones, so I've got this pink one here, which we could kind of pop there. That's quite nice. Kind of looks almost like it's attached to the other one, which was quite fun. Kind of looks like it's the other half of that flower, which, that's cool, isn't it? I mean, obviously once these are made into tags, you're not really going to even kind of be aware of what's there, if you see what I mean. It's all going to just mingle in. Okay, that's quite a big one here, which actually now, maybe it's actually going to even be too big and there won't even be room here to put it anywhere. As we have it kind of coming off the page like that. Yeah, maybe we'll have to kind of do it like that. So just kind of hanging over the edge like that. And then we've got a few more. So that's quite nice there. And obviously it doesn't matter if they're overhanging the edges, as these couple are, because you know, when we cut it down, we'll be cutting around those, so that's absolutely fine to have them that way. Got another purple one, it's quite nice, might have that here. Like that. So I know I've said it before, but you know, I hope people are enjoying the series. I mean, I think it's quite nice to do something different to a complete journal, because I think, you know, we are then, you know, trying out lots of different techniques and actually kind of being a bit more experimental than, you know, just, oh, here's another page kind of, you know, thing. So I hope that you guys kind of feel that as well. And then I've just got these gorgeous blue ones, which they're really nice, aren't they? Because they're just a kind of complete contrast. So put them there, or just down here maybe. And again, I've gone straight back into overthinking mode. You know that I said, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore. And straight away, I am back doing it. Kind of very hard to get out of that. yeah, I mean, I think, you know, for me, this has been a bit of fun because it's got me thinking of some new things to do, where had I been just doing a journal, I may have just been kind of doing, you know, a journal in my normal style, kind of using the same techniques that I've used in the past. And so this has kind of got me having to think a little bit more, like the flower Franken pages. You know, I wouldn't have obviously thought of doing that, and I wouldn't have been doing it had it not been for the series. So for me, I think it's been a good kind of actually, what I'm going to do is cut this kind of like around there so that I've got two blue flowers. Yeah, for me, it's kind of made me just have to kind of be a little bit more creative, I guess, which, you know, is nice, isn't it? Because sometimes it is easy to kind of just do things that you do all the time. And I do think, you know, for me, flowers are kind of something I use quite a bit in my journals. And, you know, they are very easy to use in all number of ways. And they just add something really nice and really special to kind of a journal. And, you know, sometimes they just kind of take it to that next level where otherwise things might have looked kind of plain or boring. Right, so for me that just now looks, you know, a little bit better and more finished off. So what I was planning on doing was obviously Mod Podging it now at this stage, but I'm aware that obviously I would then have to leave it to dry. So I think actually what I might do is cut it down into tag sections. So I'm just going to cut it down here kind of for the first tag, and I will probably kind of have it about here. So I'm just going to cut it here, and then just straight up here, like that. And I mean, obviously, you know, can neaten it up and make sure it's straight, but we're just trying to get our rough tag size and shape at the moment. So that's my first one. Now the next tag, if I kind of you know, work from this edge, now need to decide, do I want it at the top part or the bottom part? So probably for this one I will probably use the bottom section. So I'm just going to cut it like that, and just cut it across there like that. Okay, and then the final tag, just snip that off to kind of neaten that up. I will probably cut it kind of across there and then across there, I think. So on there, and then just neaten it up kind of where you want it down the side. Okay, so now I can get rid of these pieces here. So obviously we've got the overhang, so at this point I can just trim that off like that. Okay, and I think there's a bit of overhang on this one, so again we'll just trim that off there like that. Okay, so I mean, to me they just look lovely now as they are, but what we'll do is now we're just going to Mod Podge the whole thing to kind of make sure that they're really nicely sealed. So I'm just going to take my Mod Podge and just seal them. In fact, actually, I'm not going to do that now. I think what we'll do is we will stick on any other little bits that we want to have to kind of decorate our tag. So what I'm going to do is obviously make it into a tag shape. So I'm just going to take the top. So we'll do these one at a time, really, rather than kind of get bogged down in, you know, too much going on at the same time. So I just move those kind of out of the way so it's not cluttered here for you to see. Let me check them in frame and filming. Yep. Okay. And then what we could do is we could obviously do a bit of stamping. So down in this little section here, we could just stamp a little bit of script if we want. So I'm just going to take that favourite stamp of mine, and again, just with the tiny bit of script, just kind of stamp a little bit down there. And then maybe kind of a little bit more just in one or two of the gaps, you know. And I mean, again, as we say all the time, we're not looking for perfection here, you know, we're just kind of looking to I guess personalize and kind of make them aesthetically pleasing, you know, as we think they should be. And then what I'm going to do for kind of a bit more dimension, I always like to kind of, well, I don't always, but I often like to rough up around the edges. So I'm just going to kind of do that. It just kind of gives the tag a little bit more of a, yeah, a bit more dimension, I think, to it. So that's kind of that. And then just going to distress it all around, which will kind of even the tone out from the white pages to the coffee dyed paper, if you see what I mean. So it's all a bit more uniform on there. So just, and this is just vintage photo, the Tim Holtz vintage photo, kind of, you know, like that. There we go. To me, I mean, I just think that looks gorgeous now as that is, but obviously we're not going to leave it like that because, you know, I love decorating and doing extra little bits. So what I'm going to do is bring in all my little bits and bobs here. So I've just got this little kind of oh, what are these called, expanding file thing, and this contains all of my small printables from kind of my die cut sets and things like that. So I've got these ones here with kind of the typewriters and things. I've got obviously the clocks. So I'm just going to kind of take a couple of those kinds of items. I've got here tickets, so I'm just going to take a couple of tickets. You know, just anything that I think might just look kind of good on the tag. So just literally a few little bits and bobs there. Got a smaller clock here, I think. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Oh, and a smaller typewriter, which is just really handy. That's my Matchbox tops. I don't think I want any of those. And then here I've just got some of my fabulous my Gorgeous Girls, sorry, pieces here. So I might just take one or two of those because, you know, maybe they would look kind of good somewhere on one of the tags. So literally just select one or two, and then just you know, that we can kind of play around with. So those, I don't think there's anything else. We've got obviously the cigarette cards there. So I'll just have a look. Don't think we want any of the cigarette cards. I have also got these from my other little die cut pieces, which are kind of the bottles and the soaps and things. So I might just keep 1 or 2 of those handy. Just so we've got a variety of things to play around with popping onto our tags. So there we go. Leave that to one side now. So bring the tag back. So, I mean, obviously, for instance, here, we could just tear out, you know, because, I mean, I personally wouldn't put that on like that. So what we could do is just tear this girl out. Try and get rid of, obviously, as much of the flower that was there. Just kind of tear her out. Just see if she might look good. Oops. Somewhere on the tag. So just literally, oops, tear her like that. And she just, you know, to me, I think looks really lovely, kind of just placed there like that. Now, I also, because I was aware that obviously I was using the pinks and the purple tones, I've got these flowers from some of the flower trim that we used before. I managed to buy some in, I think it was bright pink, the purple, I think grey, and the gold, and possibly black. I can't actually remember, but, you know, so again, I mean, that would be an ideal way to just cover up some of that red flower that's still showing. So, you know, we could probably kind of tear more of that away, like that. And then just pretty much cover up the whole thing like that. So, I mean, I think that looks quite nice. And then what we could do is kind of have a bit of a ticket or something kind of poking out. Just kind of behind. And to me, I mean, I just think that looks a really, really nice tag now. So what we'll do, we'll just distress the Gorgeous Girls image so it's kind of, again, completely in keeping with the rest of the tag. And then we can just glue her on just like that. And just check I don't want her on this side instead. Actually, I might prefer her there. Do I prefer her there? I think she's rather nice either way. So I'm just going to literally glue her on. Like that. Just ink up the ticket. Like so. And we can just pop the ticket down, oops, down there like that. Like that. And then obviously we're going to have the purple flower here kind of covering the red. And what we could do here is just have another piece. So I'm just going to look through my kind of stamped images. Now, I've used these kinds of things loads of times before in the past, but I really like using them on tags and things because they're just a little kind of journaling spot. And they just look so good. So I'll just check that I wouldn't prefer a different kind of shaped piece. But I mean, for me, these are a little bit like kind of frames in that, you know, they're just really versatile to use. I've got some here in purple, so I'm going to trim that off and check that as well. Got these gorgeous postcard stamps as well, so we'll just cut that. We'll just cut this so that we've got a variety to kind of try. So these are just some ready stamped pieces that I've just got here, you know, ready to use. So obviously they haven't been cut, but they are kind of ready to use. So it's just a case of deciding which piece we want, really. So if I just cut around this one, and this may be going to be too large, but how I like using this most, and I think I'm okay to say that I most often use this cut in half. I don't think I very often use it as an entire piece, but I could be wrong. If I actually looked through all my old kind of videos and journals, maybe I'd find I used it in its entirety more often than I thought. But I think I generally, you know, 8 times out of 10 do actually use this cut in half. So I just kind of get that, and then we'll just ink this up. Just so again, it's nice and grungy and vintage looking, just to match our tag. So you could pop that on there as a journaling piece, cut it in half here, and then it's not kind of dominating the entire tag, if you see what I mean. So for me, you know, that just works a little bit better than the entire thing. If that's a little bit on the big side, then obviously we have got these pieces here. So we'll just cut this and try one of these. So, and again, we'll just ink this up. And again, I do often use these cut in half too. You know, so I mean, it just kind of personal preference. As it happens on this tag, this would be fine going across the full length. Now, personally, I quite like that. And I think it looks a lot better than the slightly larger one. I'm just checking I'm filming and in frame. So I'm just going to glue this one on. Like that. And then what I want to do is Mod Podge the entire thing. So I'm going to not stick this on just yet. I'm going to Mod Podge it first. Oops. So as I say, this has been kind of watered down a little bit for doing some decoupage. So, it's, you know, but I mean, it's absolutely fine. So just go over the entire thing, and obviously this will just help to secure any flowers that maybe hadn't been quite glued down enough. So it's just kind of helping to make sure they're adhered to the paper properly, or you know, enough. So there we go. Now I'm just obviously rushing this quite a lot, just so that obviously, you know, because I'm doing a video, obviously, you know, you could take a lot more time and make it a lot neater, but you know, I'm just aware that obviously my video is running on and on today, so I'm just trying to be as quick as possible really for you guys. Okay, let me just check that I've got the whole thing. I think I just missed a little spot here. Hold on, just go over that like that. Okay, hopefully I have covered the whole thing now. Might just be a little bit here. Okay, so I'm going to leave this now to dry, and then we'll obviously glue the purple flower on, and we will punch the hole. So just leave that for a moment. Okay, so this tag is now, you know, dry. I've left it for a few minutes. I've had a quick cup of tea, and now we're kind of ready to go again. So I've just got my crocodile here. Just going to literally punch a hole there, and then just take our page reinforcers, which I've already kind of inked these up so they're nice and dark. And then I'm just going to literally, I always like to kind of glue them as well, just in case they're not very sticky. You know, I find they stick okay at first, and then they seem to come up after a while. I hate that. So I'm just, you know, I just like to stick it on with a bit of extra help there. And then take that purple flower, and we're just going to glue that on like that. Like that. Oops. And then I've got this gorgeous pink lace here that I thought would be rather nice to kind of finish it off with, because obviously it's going to pick up the gorgeous pink from the flowers. So just get kind of roughly the length that we want. Probably about there. And then what I might do is just ink it up so it's not quite so bright. So like that. And then we just do the other side. You know, again, not essential, but I just thought otherwise it looked quite bright in comparison to the distressed vintage look of the tag itself. So just poke that through and just thread it like that. And obviously spread those, and can chop those down a bit. They're a little bit too long, so they're kind of flopping around all over the place, but there we go. So, I mean, I think that looks gorgeous, and, you know, what a fabulous way to use flowers, you know. All those gorgeous flowers that you get in the nice vintage books, and just makes the most lovely tag. So that's that one. I'm aware that this video is very lengthy. I'm going to stay on and now do another couple of tags. Obviously, I understand completely if you're kind of now a bit tagged out and kind of now need to get going, because obviously I know that this has been a long video. So I'm just putting in literally the next one that we'd cut out, which was the slightly slimmer one. And then whilst I obviously had my cup of tea, I just kind of lined up a couple of things that I thought we could use with it, just so you're not sat here quite so endlessly. So we're going to cut our corners down like so. Like that. And then what I've got here, this is an image from a vintage book of this lady here, so I thought that would be rather nice to use, and I'm just going to ink her up like that. And again, you know, we can do the same in the blank spaces. We can pop some script stamping, just so we haven't got the kind of blank areas. So again, we just go around, you know, and I mean, as I said last time, this, you know, it's not, we're not looking for perfection here. We're just literally, you know, we're just crafting, aren't we? We're not, you know, we're not making kind of a piece, you know, a masterpiece or anything like that, you know. We're just having a bit of fun. So I'm going to take this lovely stamp here of this postcard kind of emblem and just cut that out like that. So What I want to do is kind of line things up roughly where I think that we might like things. And I've got, this is one of my die cut pieces there. I've got obviously that other giant piece that we didn't end up using last time because I thought maybe that would just look quite good on this one. So we'll just have a look. I mean, it's just about kind of placing things where you think they look good, you know. There's no right or wrong, it's just literally a process, you know. So what I'm going to do, I'll just ink up this little postcard piece, just so that it's kind of nice and in keeping. Because obviously we haven't inked the tag itself yet, but when we do, this would look very stark and bright in comparison. So we're just going to glue that down. Just kind of there. Oops, and then we can glue this lady down. But first of all, I'm just going to ink this up and glue this one on. Oops. So I'll just glue that down. And I've been thinking literally for the last about 4 videos, I must change my ink pad on my blending tool. I still haven't done it, so it's kind of now literally shedding, you know, all over everything that I'm inking up. So I must do that before the next video. So there we go. In fact, I wanted it up there so it didn't have kind of a gap in between the 2 pieces, like that. And then I haven't glued her down yet because I wondered whether we might want to actually pop her onto something, you know, a piece of fabric or anything like that. So I'm just going to have a look and see what I've got here beside me, you know, because I don't really want to have to kind of stop the video again, because I'm aware of that's, you know, pretty frustrating, I'm sure, for you guys. So I've got an old skirt of my daughter's here with some netting underneath it, so I'm just going to cut a little section, if you can see, kind of just big enough to place this lady on. Pop that out of the way, because I just think that brings kind of something slightly different to the tag. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to glue her down just yet. I'm going to rough around the edges, distress ink it up, apply the Mod Podge, and then we'll glue her on afterwards, because obviously if I've popped that netting, you know, her underneath her, I don't want to get that caught up with the Mod Podge. So go around, you know, and again, I mean, this is not an essential requirement. This is just something that I quite like doing on my tags, you know, the roughing. And I don't always do it, you know, sometimes they look absolutely fine and don't need that. It's just sometimes, you know, I feel like they need an extra piece of kind of dimension to them. And that's, you know, I think just quite a nice way to do that without having to kind of glue things on or, you know, raise things. So, you know, that's kind of why I do that. So that's that. So I'm now just going to Mod Podge that to kind of seal it off. So again, just take the Mod Podge. Oops, I should have really washed my brush whilst I had my cup of tea. Unfortunately, I left it and now it's kind of gone slightly hard. Okay. So, you know, I mean, this just gets into any of those flowers that may be kind of here, as you can see, that piece is coming up. And the Mod Podge is just now obviously sticking that down. So you've got it completely sealed off and nothing's going to come unstuck. So it just kind of, yeah, protects it from not being quite sealed properly. So there we go. Another piece there, just kind of coming up. So there we go. Right, I'm going to pop that to one side to dry whilst we just do the final tag. You know, I am aware of obviously how long this video is getting, so I do apologise for that. The paper, as I say, just took actually a lot longer than I kind of had anticipated, so yeah, unfortunately kind of, you know, has dragged on slightly longer, but never mind. Right, so this one here, I've just placed a couple of things that I thought might look quite nice on here. So these are my die cut kind of perfume bottles and a little typewriter there. So again, just going to cut it down. In fact, I might not even cut corners on this one. I might leave this as a square tag. I like using square tags sometimes. I think they're really nice. So, you know, that's kind of then a different kind of tag then. So what we'll do, we'll just again ink up the pieces that we're going to use. I just want to check that we don't want to kind of swap them out for slightly bigger pieces because, you know, this tag is a little bit larger, so it probably could handle kind of slightly larger kind of embellishment pieces. So let me just ink these up and see how they'd look. There we go. Cut on the typewriter. And then I'm just going to rough around the edges of this one and then ink up this tag. And then we'll just ink it all up. Now this tag, I don't know whether you can kind of see, I don't know how well the camera picks this up, but there are hardly any little spaces. So on this one, we really don't need to kind of do the stamping in the blank spaces because actually, as luck has it, there are hardly any. So, you know, it's pretty well covered. So that's a whole kind of stage that we don't really have to kind of do on this one, which, you know, is quite handy. So there we go. Right, let me pop that to one side. Now we could have some lace kind of on here somewhere. So we just kind of pop these down, just kind of there. Could have some lace kind of running down the bottom, and then got that other purple flower obviously from the trim that we could kind of pop on there. Quite pretty. And then we could kind of pop a corner tag or something over there. So that's kind of one option. Yeah, just have a look. So I might just glue these couple of items down now so that we're kind of committed to them. So just pop the perfume bottle down and then the typewriter. Like that. Just have to kind of press it slightly harder because obviously the card's slightly curly, if you see what I mean, from the coffee dyeing and the ironing, so it's not 100% flat, so just kind of help it down a bit with that. I'm just kind of playing around with this one and just seeing what might look nice. It may look nice to have a kind of trim on here of some kind, so I'm just going to see if I've got some of my, you know, favourite, my diamante trim or anything. I've got some of the pearl trim that we've used quite a bit in this series. I'm just having a look to see if I've got any of the kind of black, which I just always find really striking. So, I mean, I think that looks really nice now. So I'm just going to literally pop this lace just on, just going to kind of dob bits of glue kind of at random spaces. I'm just going to kind of glue that down like that. And then obviously then once we pop the purple flower on, that's going to help to kind of hold that down further. So I'll just pop that there, which actually I do prefer it that side, I think. So just going to pop it that side. So just hot glue it. And you know what I've forgotten to do? We didn't Mod Podge this first, and now we've glued all these bits on now. So that's totally my mistake. I just totally kind of lost it there for a moment and forgot. So I mean, not that it really matters, to be honest, but we can just Mod Podge to this section. So I'm just going to pop this on. I don't know quite what's happened to this one. Oh, there we go. It's just a thread of purple kind of laying in there, which just looked a bit strange. Right, so I'm just going to kind of balance that down. And then what I'm going to do is probably wet glue this trim, because this is very thin, this trim. So if I use the hot glue, I think it would definitely kind of be wider than the trim. So let me just get my wet glue, which now I've got all threads of hot glue on it. Oh, got threads stuck literally all over me again. So we're just like, oops, line it up like that. And then we'll take our trim, just pop it on like that. Oh, come on. Now what I probably should do is actually kind of weigh that down, or kind of clip something, you know, use a clip to kind of keep that on there. However, what I'm going to do first, I think, is actually kind of Mod Podge over this and then kind of put it to one side to dry. So we just take the Mod Podge again and then just very, you know, very roughly just go over the whole tag. Oops, again. Like that. There we go. Just see where we're up to. I can't really see again because the shadows kind of are in different places, if you see what I mean. So it's a bit hard to see where I've kind of painted up to. So I just had to hold it up to the light to kind of see where the Mod Podge stopped. So I'm roughly about there. So there we go. Then we can just press that lace there into the Mod Podge as well, and that will just help it stay stuck a little bit more. Right, so I'm going to move this one now out of the way, and hopefully the last one that we did is probably around about dry now. So I'll just pop this one out of the way, place the lid back on the Mod Podge. Oops. Sorry, I'm just literally sticking that lace back on that tag. Right, okay, let's move things out of the way a bit so as we're getting a little bit clear. So I bring this one back. It's not 100%, but it's dryish, you know, it's dry enough. So literally we're going to punch a hole in like that, and then exactly as I did with the last one, just use some of those inked up hole reinforcers, and again just glue it. As I say, I mean, you don't have to glue them, you know, because obviously some may stick better than others. I just do sometimes find that they don't always stick, you know, they appear to have stuck and then later on they come unstuck. So then what we're going to do is pop our lady down on here. So up to you really, you know, if you want to keep the netting as white or whether you want to ink it up. I mean, I quite like it white. I think that kind of brings something, you know, quite nice and kind of contrasting to it, but you could ink it. So let me just bring in my sheet again, which is just getting very messy here. So I've moved it kind of out of the way. Right, let's ink up the bit of net. Can you see that? My ink pad just disintegrating as we speak. Right. So, I mean, it probably does look a little bit better, to be honest, you know, just for being slightly inked up. Now, what I'm going to do is literally just glue this on. Now, I possibly could have hot glued it, but this obviously being from a book, it's quite thin, but with a slight kind of glossy surface, and I didn't want to kind of have bumps in it, if that makes sense. So what I'm going to do is probably hot glue it now, just with a couple of bits, because it's just got the net to kind of add a little bit of a kind of layer between the picture itself and the glue. Right, so that's stuck on like that, and then just get some lace to kind of finish it off. So I've got this piece here, which may be quite nice. So again, I might just ink this up so it's a little bit kind of darker. I'm not going to go too mad, I don't want it really dark, but just slightly. Like that. And then just thread that through. Let me just check I'm filming and in frame. Yep. Okay. Oops. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on. There we go. Little bit of a kind of tab there. Now, the other one's not really dry from that Mod Podge, unfortunately. It's getting there. So I can't kind of go too mad because I don't want to obviously kind of ruin it. But what I thought we'd do is just literally put a hole in the corner. So exactly the same as we have with the others. Just glue the whole reinforcer on like that. And then obviously decide what colour lace that we want. Now I think what we'll do is go with that same lace that we've just used, because that's what lace is at the bottom. So again, it's the same as the pink lace, but it's just in an ivory colour. So I'm just going to cut a strip of that, and then we will just distress ink that. So hopefully that's going to be long enough. Yes, it should be. So we're just distress ink that now. So as I say, I mean, to terribly sorry that this has gone on slightly longer than planned. I had been trying to keep these videos to roughly 45 minutes, you know, because I thought that was quite a good manageable size, both for me to do and, you know, for people watching. This, as I say, it kind of obviously went on longer than expected because I didn't anticipate how long it was going to take me to make the flower franken pages, or page. But, you know, hopefully it's kind of still been worth it because, you know, I love the things that we've managed to make now with the flower franken. So, the flower franken paper. So, there we go. So there's our 3 tags. So if I just move things out of the way so that it's a little bit clearer, so that you can actually see without all the other clutter that's now building up from working. So we've obviously got this one here, this one here, and then this one here. So I mean, I think they're gorgeous. Different kind of effect to obviously kind of napkin decoupage, and yeah, really fun to kind of make the franken paper, and yeah, I hope that you like them. I thought great way to use flowers in your journals, and really, you know, fun thing to do. So hope you liked it, and I will see you next time, hopefully. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon. Thank you. Bye.